that is the it broke my heart. It's still on my mind. We're not doing a good enough job of making sure that our kids understand, like, that is not the story. Get educated about the danger of being the missing demographic. It is only getting worse, and it needs to get fixed. And the only way that you can fix it is by, there's not enough of us in the room. There's not enough of us getting money. And the reason is that,
Tell us about Black Girl Code.
so Black Girls Code was founded in 2011, and they've always had a singular mission, and that is to make sure that our girls could see themselves in the room, that they had access to the technology, the curriculum, and safe spaces to learn. And that was 2011. And as you and I were talking, you and I last met in 2017, when I really started on my journey from being a media executive to moving into the tech sector. And one of the reasons I did that was, as I started, after launching franchise development, I started spending more time with a lot of these tech companies, looking for solutions to leverage tech, to better engage with my fandoms and all that good stuff. But while I was there was this low murmur of a conversation that was not for a general public yet. And it was the conversation around artificial intelligence. And it was a little alarming to me back then that sometimes I would be at a conference and I would be the only Black woman in the room, period. And as I was thinking about how they said that, AI was going to transform our future, it was worrisome, because I was wondering, like, how can you do that when there's a whole demographic missing from this conversation? And so when I had the opportunity to move over into the tech space, I did, because I was like, maybe I can work with my colleagues to start weaving this narrative in a little better, because what we do know is nothing better than storytelling to change mindsets and inspire. And so I did that. And then I ended up moving into high tech. And as I continued on my career, I kept seeing this weird, like, where's all the Black women? And why aren't there more of us in leadership roles? Even as I was in a high leadership position in my roles, many times I was the only one, and that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And so when the opportunity came to join Black Girls Code, I accepted about a year ago, because where we are right now, Renee, is I'm smiling because I always look at these things as opportunities, but we are in the middle of an epidemic. There's less than 2% of tech roles are held by Black women, and it drops to 1%, and that's probably being generous. And so you have to ask yourself, who's coding your future?
Thank you for that question. Who's coding your future? And what are we missing
Well,
when we don't have a incredibly brilliant, imaginative, innovative demographic, which I would say is true about all demographics,
yes,
right? But
yes.
when you have like a glaring gap, what does that say about our future?
It's incredibly problematic. So one of the things that we have to consider is, when you see the conversation around some of this health tech misses skin cancer on darker skin, that's very problematic. When you see, conversations that, Black people are getting loans with higher interest rates, that's problematic. When you think about the fact that HR companies say that they're going to be automating, the job matching, that's incredibly problematic, because there's some incredible women who come before me who have been talking about this for quite some time. And Dr. Sophia Noble is one of them, with her book, Algorithms of Oppression. And it talked about how dangerous it is for women of color in these spaces when we're not considered, and how the way that we are then described in search is unfavorable. Um, Dr. Joy wrote the book Unmasking AI, and she talks about the fact that she has to wear a white mask for the facial recognition technology to recognize her face. There's, of course, the book Invisible Women, Kathy O'Neill, Weapons of Math Destruction, or you can
Mm.
watch it on Netflix, Coded Bias. Somehow it didn't make enough noise as one would have thought, but maybe it was during COVID. It came out in 2020. How scary it is when you are not paying attention to who is coding your future. And when I talk about this, I think it's important to remember that it's not just engineers who need to understand this technology. In order for this to be effective, in order for us to affect change at scale, we also need to be in the rooms where the technology is funded, where it's legislated,
Absolutely.
and where it's marketed, because otherwise it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. There's not enough of us in the room. There's not enough of us getting money. And the reason is that if you don't understand the technology, you don't understand where you should
The
be investing your
implications.
dollars. Exactly.
Exactly. So what is Black Girls Code? What are they doing? What are the programs? What are the curriculums? What are you seeking to do to shift the reality that we are facing right now?
Well, when I started, we added two pillars. So education has always been one of the pillars, and that is culturally relevant curriculum taught by people that look like us. I added the inspiration piece, the you belong in the room, tech is for you, tech aligns to your passions. And we added the third pillar because with one and two, what's the point if you don't launch? So we added launch. So being really intentional with our 18 plus career and college pathways to make sure that we're not letting girls fall through the cracks, but rather wrapping them up in community so that they, whether you're an HBCU or a college where you're the only one in the room, you're not by yourself. And looking at partnerships with organizations that are offering our girls paid internships, paid apprenticeships, and supporting our girls through the interview process. And of course, something that I really loved this year was our summer camps across 8 cities, where we don't just teach the girls, again, the hands on the keyboard. We also provide them with training around mental health. So we start at 7 and we expanded to 18 plus, really 25, right? We're trying to stay with you until you get your first job. And hopefully beyond, some of our alumni actually come back and teach our curriculum for us, over the summer break so that they can stay connected and part of the community. 7 is really when, that first laptop, that first toy, that first spark, that first, like, this is for me. One of my first, and like one of the first times I don't get emotional on jobs very much, but I definitely did here, was in Seattle. We had little girls coming and learning how to code and watching the light bulb turn on over their head when something moved, when they created something that was in their head and now it's in front of them and it's come to life. As a creative executive, of course, I can understand and I love that. But what I love even more was Hasbro was a great sponsor here. They gave us swag bags, and as the girls left, they had to, turn in a little ticket showing that they did the thing. They answered their little 3 questions, and they would get a bag of gifts, and that's their first paycheck. And so I wonder, will they remember what it felt like to get this check from
Mm.
something out of their head when we think about the fact that we're not amplifying our role models in the way that we should right now. So could they be their own role model? Another great story was this girl won our Build a Beat challenge. Again, showing girls that this technology aligns to their passions. She learned how to remix music using Python, and she won. She's a middle school Black girl in Atlanta. She was Ciara, who was our ambassador, one and only pick. And when I asked her if she knew she was going to win, she said, yeah. I'm like, let's wrap this girl in bubble wrap and make sure.
Confidence.
Yes. Keep it.
Confidence,
Keep it.
self-confidence. Yeah,
It.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then you go all the way. So then you go to college
We're in college.
age.
We're at the college age because so high school, you really need to catch the girls at middle school so they care in high school. But like, let's stay. What has been interesting in this work? There's a couple of things that's been interesting for me in this work is how many Black women I've seen that I meet with who are like, dang, I should have really stayed in computer science or in like these courses, but like it just felt very lonely. So our girls are having this problem as well. And so I want to make sure that, again, at the HBCU, there's more support. And we're there. Of
Mm.
course, we had an incredible summer camp at Spelman, incredible. But I also just spoke at Princeton. We have girls at Yale. We have girls everywhere. What bothers me is when I hear that they're thinking about dropping out of a computer science class because they're the only one, because no one's helping them with their work. What I want to do is make sure that we plug them into community so that they find support and that they are not by themselves. And we have a great donor in Nextera who provides scholarships for us, and we're able to bring a lot of our students, our girls in college, to some of these conferences like AfroTech,
Yeah.
where they land and they go like, holy, there's thousands of us looking to achieve the same thing, to use
You
technology to
know,
make the world better.
yeah, I wish that I don't know, I was gonna say I wish that people didn't feel lonely, but they do, right? I mean, there are many of us who were the lonely onlys
Yes.
and we made it through, but, at this stage, at 2024, we're really hoping that people don't have to have that experience, but I do know how powerful community is. When I started the work of diversity, equity, inclusion in Boston, it was like I was an attorney and I was the first and only in my company. And then ultimately I went to be the executive director of this organization that was like a group of law firms who wanted to increase the number of Black attorneys in these Boston prestigious, like private firms. And what I discovered is I had to build community because even as individual firms were maybe getting one person here or two people there or three people there, those folks really rarely saw each other because they were so busy, billing hours and working in these huge towers of people. So you would occasionally see a Black person, you were like, hi. But I developed a community through the law schools and then through the folks who were in the law firms. And that just made them feel like what you just said, which was, okay, I may be the one or two in my school or in my company, but there are more people than I could imagine. And I think that's really important.
Something that is crazy is I now have this incredible job. I spend my days talking to powerful, smart, intelligent women like yourself and women across all of these different organizations. And some of them are also like, it's just me. And I'm like, but it's not. And I just wonder like how I think about this. I want to think about how to activate this community. We have now worked our way to these spaces where we have the ability to affect change at scale together. And where is the convening moment for that? And I'm not talking about like some panel where we all get up on stage and talk about our achievements. I'm talking
Right.
about how do we come together and go like, I am privileged with this space. I am going to create more space. And in
Mm.
creating more space, the space gets even easier for me, but I know that I'm paying it forward in a way that's really impactful. That's something that is kind of like
Yeah.
all of my work is how can you use your space, your platform to make change? This is one of those ways.
Tell us about this conference that you're excited about,
Yes,
AfroTech.
I love
I always wanted to go when I was at Netflix. I really got obviously an opportunity to meet more engineers and to be more into tech. And I was like, what is this conference? I went almost once, but it didn't work out timing wise. But tell us about it.
AfroTech for me when I was in tech was like I was living in San Francisco and I flew down there to be on a panel and I got off the plane and I was like, Black people, amazing.
Right?
and and there's just again like I'm multi-race and I've lived all over the world, but there's something just about being in community with people that look like all the context, like everything is just easy and it doesn't matter how old you are, how successful you are. That moment of feeling like you're back with your folks is magic. And there's just like a lot of like things that don't have to be said, but equally important is the we're all doing this. We're not by ourselves. And I think that Afrotech and Morgan does a really good job of building this community so people don't just go to the conference and then don't talk again until the next conference. She's really been thoughtful about how she continues the conversation and the engagement so people want to come back. And so when we had the opportunity to send, girls to a conference, this is definitely one that I wanted them to go to. We had a girl at Yale that was getting ready to drop out and we sent her to Afrotech. And she came back with 2 paid internship opportunities. She ended up going to Google. She just finished her summer internship like a month or so ago, and she's now back at Yale completing her computer science degree. Why is this important? So we have the opportunity children, of course, the ones that are the furthest away from opportunity, and we make sure that we bring them in because we know that working in tech is an incredible opportunity. It's transformative in a fiscal way as well, where you can make a lot of money. You can help your family, yourself, put yourself on a different trajectory. Um, but then when you think about what I was talking about with the less than 1% in AI and the fact that AI is coloring all of our lives, uh, these girls that are in these computer science classes are the closest ones to the solution to, are one of them going to be the next CEO of the next open AI? And, sometimes I say that and people go like, they look at me and I'm like, okay, but I think RBG, she
Mhm.
used to say like, why can't we have a Supreme Court full of women? And people were like, that's crazy. And she said, well, there's been a Supreme Court full of men forever.
Yeah, I know. It's so hard for people to see the ways in which their lenses have been shaped or misshapen, should I say,
Yeah.
by the dominance of certain groups. And so I understand the power of seeing yourself and also recognizing that you are not alone.
And I think part of it is that we don't understand, but I would encourage anyone who's listening to this to make it a point to understand and get educated about the danger of being the missing demographic. It is it is only getting worse, and it needs to get fixed, and the only way that you can fix it is by making a demand that things change. It can't be one person on a board, can't be one person who's in marketing. There needs to be people who understand at all levels of the organization. There's this gentleman, his name is John Passmore. He has a large language model called Latimer.ai. He's a Black man, and he's created this incredible platform that is inclusive from its inception. And even in talking to him about like geographically, what is the difference if we roll it out here or we roll it out in the Caribbean? Or, he thinks like, oh, these are all different experiences. We need to be thoughtful about where we're pulling in the information. I wonder how many of those conversations are happening at some of these other tech companies.
Well, what you said is people can use their sphere of influence, right?
Yeah.
And they can ask questions. I was just listening to someone presenting at Harvard, also a Black guy who's with Open AI, and I wish I could remember his name, but he was like, use it, like, use the technology, like, don't be afraid of it because we need your feedback. We need you to actually use it and tell us where it is not right or for whom is it not inclusive. And so that's the first thing. But the nice thing about Black Girls Code is that we're building,
Yeah.
obviously, people who can give that feedback and who can talk to their families and talk to their communities and make it not so scary. That is to me very, very powerful. And also, what I wanted you to do is to share with, maybe there's a young woman or a more senior woman who's looking to come to a new
Yes.
thing, right? Because we got all these folks who are my age who are like, what's next, right? What's the next phase? And so, what do women, and by the way, because I know with tech, it's not just Black women, right? It's
Correct.
like women generally are deeply underrepresented in this field. But what should, in particular, women of color, those who are gender expansive, what should they be thinking about and what can they be doing to take advantage of the programs that you are offering?
Opt in, come to our website. We are bgc.org. Check out what's available. We are going to be rolling out a whole bunch of new virtual programming. We are going to be at conferences, so pay attention where we are so that you can sign up. Some of the women who come to some of our family fun days, one of the things that we do like to do is a family fun day in cities where not just the girl, but her whole family comes so that they can get exposed to tech. And out of those, we've had some moms, some volunteers sign up to some of the internship, apprenticeship programs that we have available for them. I think something to think about is like, this is not scary. This is an opportunity to expand your field, to try new things. AI is not like this scary monster that's coming to eat everybody's lunch. When used correctly, it can help you be more productive. It can create space for you to be more creative. As a creative, I don't really love the idea of like it just making a script and we just use it. I think that it's still really flat, but it's like a great brainstorming partner. But I like, for the girls that are thinking about being in computer science, data science, these different spaces, stay in school and opt in, reach out. We do have a community for you. If you're a parent, please encourage your children to, and if it's not us, like there's not enough computer science being taught in schools. And unfortunately, in some of the colleges, they haven't come along yet to understand the value of AI, and that just by preventing it, you're really just handcuffing children from progress. So yeah, like play with the technology, understand the technology, and think big. And if you're in a space of privilege where you can affect change, do it. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah, so by the way, the person who I was speaking about, his name is James Hairston,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, and he really is showing us all this cool AI stuff that can do with like farmers in various countries in Africa can now get lots of information. Like, so there is really so much opportunity, as you
Yes.
said, and we don't want to be left out of that opportunity. I wonder now, I mean, young people, I think, are going to be so excited about AI. And so our attitudes as aunties and grandmas and parents has to be like progress forward and using, like you said, the resources we have. Maybe it's advocating for more courses in your kids' school. Maybe
Yeah.
it's, I often think about when I was growing up, I just happened to grow up at a time where after Martin Luther King sadly was assassinated, some of the doors opened, right?
Yeah.
And there were like these programs. Like I was in a math program when I was in the 5th grade, and I remember loving math as a result of that. So I know for sure that the things that you're doing can actually set a direction for young people that they hadn't even thought about. And as you said, there are gaps and cracks that people fall through. So what's your sort of advice to a young Black woman or a woman of color, maybe someone who's gender expansive, and they're running into what feels like a barrier, or as you said, they feel very lonely. Um, what things could they do? Might they think about, we know, join Black Girls That Code, but
No, but also, like,
anything
you're not
yeah,
you're not by yourself, and I think when I spoke at Princeton, it was really interesting. I There were, like, some high school girls came as well. There were these incredibly talented, Black women there that had not met themselves each other yet. Just I think understanding community is so important, and it's not just Black Girls Code, obviously, it's just who can be a mentor to you? Who can be a sponsor? I mean, this is a whole other conversation, the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, but like
right.
how can you connect with people who can, support you and understand where you're trying to go? The worst thing that I think can happen in these spaces is that you start feeling alone and that nobody cares, because like I'm here to tell you that people do care and that we deeply need your expertise and we deeply need for you to stay engaged so that you can change these numbers. Because why Black Girls Code is because of that 2%, but to your point, it's women in general. And so like how can we just be more supportive of each other and understanding the spaces that we need to get into? And I know that we're running out of time, but I have to say it,
Yes.
as Black women, as Black people, as people of color, please, we need to understand a better way to talk about our value proposition. There will come a time when you will be tapped to sell your trauma for access. Please don't. That doesn't help you advance in your career. It's a zero sum game. And when I was talking to a girl and she said, if I don't, how will I differentiate myself? That is the it broke my heart. It's still on my mind. We're not doing a good enough job of making sure that our kids understand like that is not the story. What is your value proposition? She was stunning. If you hire me, you know why you're hiring me. If I engage with you, I know what I'm engaging with. Neither of us have our backstory. Your story is your story to share with people that you deem worthy of understanding your story. You don't owe that story to anyone. You don't owe it to make anybody feel better because they helped you. Period.
Christina, thank you for taking the time to say that. I truly appreciate that. How are you funded, and how can people with some resources support in that way?
I love that question. Again, I'm actually pretty active on LinkedIn myself, and so is Black Girls Code. We have all of the social channels. Again, wearebgc.org is our website, and you can link through to donate. connecting us with your ERGs, connecting us with, we do actually quite a bit of work with corporate and sponsorship. Infosys sponsored our Build a Beat Challenge. Google sponsored our first season of Code Along. You know, being able to fund these programs is really important as we want to reach more girls quicker with deeper engagement, like being able to not just do one-off programming. We want to be in more summer camps this year. We want to have more of that digital programming. So please reach out. I have a whole team ready to engage who would love to welcome you into the Black Girls Code community.
Thank you so much, Christina. We really appreciate you coming by and talking with us. Thank you, Black Girls That Code. And let's look forward together to a bright and a coded future that we have an enormous contribution to. So thank you so much.
Thank you.